Hey, Gabby.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you wonderfully. Good to see
Great,
you.
great. Hi, let me introduce quickly today's episode. Welcome everyone to Leadership, another episode about how we can shift leadership in the corporate world and in not-for-profit, in government institutions. Today, I have the pleasure to welcome with me Dr. Kai Bruns, a fellow action coach
Whoop, whoop.
and a business coach and a startup coach. And I had the pleasure to uh, meet. It's been 6 months now,
Yeah,
around six
actually,
months
I've
now.
learned from you, haven't I?
Yeah, we learn from each other every day.
Me too.
We are live on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. So if you're having difficulties seeing the full picture in landscape mode on Instagram, please jump to the other platforms where you can see both, uh, pictures coming in from my end and from Dr. Kai. And go ahead, please, Kai, introduce yourself to whoever is watching us.
Yeah, Gabby, thank you very much for giving me the chance to come on your show. It is a distinguished pleasure to be here tonight. Yeah, as you said, I'm an action coach. Whoop whoop. So, well, I'm a trained banker, right? But that is many years ago, and I'm in education now for about 15 years, 9 of which I have lived in the UAE in Dubai. And this is also where I started to engage with Action Coach, become an Action Coach. However, now I have relocated to my home country, to Germany, where I'm based now, and I'm still continuing with Action Coach. But I have a small side hustle here as well with business and life navigators, which I have recently started with a friend. And obviously, I'm also working at the University of Applied Science of Emden here as a startup coach. And I think what all these three positions that I have in there have in common is that I try to close the gap between people's potential and their performance. And that is what
Nice.
I try to achieve every day and do as an action coach, as a business and life navigator, and as a startup coach.
Nice. And you're currently in Germany or in Dubai?
In Germany, I
In
am
Germany.
in a small town in the north called Emden. It's lovely, a seaport. It's yeah, gateway
Nice.
to the world.
Nice. And how's the weather there? Because here in Lebanon, it's snowing at the shores.
Oh, is it
Yeah,
snowing?
yeah.
No, we don't have the pleasure here. It's very windy today and coldish. So in well, in it's like 5 to maximum 9 degrees these days here,
Mm-hmm.
Celsius. Yeah, and yeah, windy, rainy. The good old northern German weather scenario that you have here all too often in winters, because it's at sea level. You don't find it really that it's
Mm-hmm.
snowing at all. Right.
That's amazing. So tell me, decoding business coaching.
Yes. Uh,
What do you mean? What do you mean by? Because I know it's a myth or it's being mispracticed. There's a lot of abuse to the practice. And whenever I go, I tend to define coaching in general and the difference between the business coaching, executive coaching, leadership coaching, and the other kind of practices. So, what is business coaching?
well, it's a very good question, Gabby. Um, an interesting thing that I have at least seen when I attended events in Dubai is that there are more and more people who really want to become life coaches, right? So it's a thing to become a life coach, and a business coach is yeah, often also an option. And so business coaching more in a holistic way, a holistic approach, right? So
Yeah.
looking into a life in a more, yeah, around a way. But what I also see is there's still a misconception of what a business coach can actually do for you and he can't do for you, and for you personally and for your business. Right. And maybe we can try today to clarify this a little bit and
Mhm.
to see what business coaching has come to be. And I think one way of understanding business coaching, and I want to stress this is only one way, right, is to look a little bit into the evolution of business coaching, or of coaching as such. The term coaching came up for the first time in Hungary in the 16th century, I think it was 1550 something. And it was when there were luxurious coaches going back and forth, Budapest and Vienna. So it was really a means of transportation. So coaching as such, the term comes from logistics. So I found this very interesting. It made then a leap to academia, to where I am now in. And that was at Oxford University in 1830, something like that, where it was a slang word, coach, for help, well, for being a tutor, basically. Right. So it was to help people, students make the cut so that they don't fall off the train, basically. So what you have seen, right? So it's an evolution from, well, transporting people to maybe teaching students. And then, in the 1920s, so in the 20th century, and it became a thing, mostly, I think, in the USA. And I don't know, do you know the movie Chariots of Fire?
No.
No, well, it was a 19. Well, it's a long time ago, right? So it's this Chariots of Fire it's about victory through self-sacrifice, and it's about the 1924 Olympic Games, and the main characters are the people from the British team, and they look at the American team a little bit as well, they're not so honorary because they have professionalized the sports. And what they had is they really had these coaches yelling at them, right, leading them to peak performance. And I think that is more or less so this next step of coaching, where you have people like famous, well, American football, right, is a great example. I think there's one coach, is Bear Bryant. And Bear Bryant was famous for one of his quotes where he said that, well, not the will to win is the important thing. That is what everyone has. But it's the will to prepare to win. That is the important thing. And I think this shows very nicely, right, that coaching to that time was conceived as something, okay, being motivational, getting you to this extra 10 to 15% through your attitude that you show up every day. And it was then, and to look at maybe a last stage of the evolution of the term coaching, in the 20th century, so 1970, where you had, I don't know, one name that comes to mind is Timothy Galway, and I love his book. It's called The Inner Game of Tennis. And he was looking at this interpersonal characteristics of coaching. Yeah. So what he was saying is, well, the inner game is basically the game that takes place in the mind against such obstacles such as a lack of focus, self-doubt, or this voice of self-condemnation. Oh, you idiot! Why did you do this? Right? And so for coaching,
Is this the book where they brought baseball coaches to coach tennis players? And they told them,
no. Well, from my account, right, this book is about, well, he was a Harvard tennis player, right, and from there he drew his analogy to playing tennis, and he was basically saying you have two voices in your head, right, or you have an inner and an outer game, and so tennis was a sport. But you're right, there's another book on the inner game of golf, and I think this is exactly this is a follow-up, and then you have a sequence of a couple of books, right, the inner game of such. So yes, totally, it goes into that direction.
The idea is, in general, when coaches are required to ask questions and listen, this test was made where they brought coaches, not experts per se in the tennis game, and they told them just to ask questions and coach by asking questions. Mm-hmm. Is this, by analogy, what coaching is all about? Or can we have a mix and match between giving advice, asking questions, if the coachee is stuck, telling them what to do? Do you practice this in your coaching?
Yes.
engagement?
Yeah. An excellent question, Gabby. A person who I totally admire for what he has done to the coaching business is Miles Downey, and he has written a book on effective modern coaching. I think is the update of his book. And to answer your question, right? So for him, coaching is the art of facilitating the performance and learning and development of another. Right? I think that is, well, to cite him more or less. And for him, coaching was then this spectrum, what you've just said, right? So you would have a spectrum to the left, which would be the directive coaching, where this instructing, giving advice falls in, maybe motivating, right? What we have just heard. So to get to the last 10%, and then going to the non-directive coaching part, where you have, well, asking questions to raise awareness, maybe to summarize what was happening, or to get into a reflective dialogue where you then can, and that is what you alluded to, I think, really to follow the interest, right? To go in there. And in my coach, well, I don't think it's an either or. It's always, okay, what is your coachee wanting from you and what does he need? And for my practice, Gabby, I have like two extremes here. Right. So I have on this scale of 1 to 10, you could say 1 and 2. So to the left extreme, you would have those who really are stuck. And as a coach, you have to get them unstuck. When I, as a coach, right, give them this non-directive coaching and try to engage in a dialogue without giving him instructions or help how to get unstuck, he will have the feeling, even though maybe in the long term it might help, right, to get into this inner game, basically, he will have the feeling of, well, this is nonsense. That's not going anywhere. Right? So I'm not doing myself a favor, or nor do I myself, nor the coachee, by just having this non-directive approach. On the other hand, and you are an expert in this, Gabi, and you can tell me much better than I can, is that non-directive coaching, right, is often something that you get with executive coaching, right, where it's really about peak performance. It's not, they have all the basics, right? They don't need, what you would give, someone to get unstuck, for instance. They don't need marketing ideas. They don't need systems to follow. They actually really need to get into the flow state, right? And that is where they then have their peak performance, when they deal with their team, with their staff, when they have to, draw up a grand strategy for the company, right? So I think it really depends.
You're right.
As a
You're right,
coach, we have
because
to do our empathy work, right? And the other way around, if you are out there and you're looking for a business coach, browse their website, look a little bit into, do they fall either to the left-hand side of the spectrum, right? This directive coaching, or is it the other side, or is it a mix? Or at ActionCOACH, we have this beautiful thing we call alignment with the clients, right? And that is a perfect place really to set up the field and to say, okay, well, what we do and can give you is this and that. Right, so really to get clarity on what is it what you want in your coaching.
You're right. I've noticed that in executive coaching, you become less of a directive coach and less of providing solutions. Whereas in small to micro businesses, where you are coaching businesses in business coaching, you tend to become, because they are stuck, because they don't know marketing, they don't know how to interpret their numbers, they don't know how to work out their strategies. So you have to wear the hat of a directive coach. I take permission. Whenever I jump between hats, I tell them, can I be your advisor now? Or can I be the consultant rather than your coach? And listen, one of my clients have tried this. Why don't you give it a try? This is the template. This is the solution. Let's try and work it out next week to see what happens. So yeah, for me, it's a mix and match. And I use it as I'm a business coach by practice. So my job description is business coaching. But when it comes to coaching as a skill or as a tool in a leader's toolbox, can we do the same, or can it apply the same? Because our show is called Leadership. And I want leaders to shift their mindset from the traditional leadership / management style to, leading from behind and helping their followers, their team members, strive, survive these difficult times and become better versions of themselves. Can we have all the skill sets and the tools that we use in coaching? Can we give it to the leaders in this world to use it on their teams, or will they lose their, their authority or their management position?
Yeah, I think what is very important, and you mentioned this before, is first of all, ask permission, right? And by asking permission, you're actually modeling the type of skill or entrepreneurial behavior and entrepreneurial thinking that you want them to adapt later on. And I think we work on different levels here, right? So you can work on the entrepreneurial thinking, behavior, or just the tools that you use to improve your game. And just to go into one example, when you want to create awareness, right, of a leader for what is at stake or what business is, I would always come in my discussions with my clients to, for instance, a discussion about, I don't know, Gabby, do you know Simon Sinek, right? This is one of the people I really admire, and there's an awful lot to learn from him, or what he has to give is always a gift. And one of his books is about the infinite game. Do you know that one? Is that familiar? If not, I'll just explain, right? So in the infinite game, he's basically saying that, well, you can play two types of games. You have this infinite game and we have the finite game. And the difference here is that when you have a finite game, right, you have certain types of players, you have rules, you have regulations, you know when the game ends and when it starts, and then what is in between, right? A good example for that is football. Here's a game of football, and you can clearly say when you win football or not, right? When you have scored one more time than the other team. But he's saying, well, life, unfortunately, and business life included, is not a finite game. It's an infinite game, right? And if infinite games are not being played for being won, right? So you can't say, let's beat the competition, or let's be number one in the marketplace. That would be misleading. This would be a mindset where you don't understand actually the nature of business. So he is saying, well, an infinite game is being played to survive, right? And that draws into this aspect of lifelong learning. Right? You're not. One example from the book is he obviously was invited to both to Apple and to Microsoft in the early 2000s. And when speaking at Microsoft later on, they gave him this equivalent of an iPad. iPod, right? So I don't know, Zoom or Zame or what it was called. And they were totally happy about it and said, oh, well, it's better than the iPad. And so they were striving to be better than the competition. Right. And he said a couple of years later, he was invited to Apple to give a talk. And he went there and he told one of the first top 100 employees, here, listen, they have a great thing. And I think it's even better than yours. And he didn't care at all, because a couple of months later, the iPhone came up. Right. And it basically eradicated an entire market, including their own product. Right. So it rendered it useless. Basically, when you had an iPhone, you would not need an iPod anymore. And so this is an example of, on the one hand, being able to through disruptive innovation, right, to innovate your entire product portfolio, and by this principle of lifelong learning, right? So it goes on. Right? It's not about being better than Microsoft. It's about, okay, what's the next thing, right? How can I disrupt myself? So at the end, it's to create this mindset of lifelong learning. The race is with yourself at the end, right? And
Kaizen.
It's not about
improvement, always improving yourself, becoming the next version of yourself. As a leader and as an individual, I strongly believe that you have to actualize yourself, equip yourself with emotionally EQ stuff, the communication style, the connecting with people's style, motivating people, empathy, having empathy around your team,
Oh,
and
yes.
helping them grow. Okay, that's been great. Kai, if we have to give an advice to leaders out there as a final tip, what would we give leaders out there, whether they are business owners or executives?
Well, for me, it's day-to-day life, right? But I see that business coaches are, well, the concept as we have established is evolving. It doesn't mean what it meant once. And if you are a business leader, I would say business coaching is an investment, not only for yourself as the executive, but I see it more and more for entire teams. Right. So also for middle management, there's benefit of inviting over a coach to your business. So my advice would really be to reconsider, go with the flow, and understand that it can be. It's not a sign of weakness, but on the contrary, right? A sign of that you have understood what is happening now, and this additional support that you give to your team in order to perform even better than last year, or to perform well in a crisis as we have it now, a prolonged one, right, through COVID-19, and how to reboot and restart. And it's in this VUCA world, right, so to speak, this is one of those pillars to success, which is often overlooked. And there's a lot of potential to be gained from doing something that maybe other business owners don't do.
Thank you very much, Kai. And thank you for the messages out there. Thank you, Yusuf, who joined us
Yusuf,
and
good to
left
see
a
you.
message. Jocelyn, Linda, thank you, everyone. Kai, thank you very much for your contribution in leadership in this episode. And
It was a
looking
great
forward
pleasure.
to see you in person in this
Yeah,
part of the world.
inshallah, my friends. Keep up
Inshallah.
the great work. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.